baby. Let's talk about you and me. Welcome to Completely Booked.
I'm Jenna Hassel.
And I'm Hurley Winkler. You are listening to the official podcast of the Jacksonville Public Library. And today we are going to talk about poop.
Yes, that is right. You heard correctly. We're talking about poop today on the podcast, guys.
The Poo Cast.
The Poo Cast. We're
Today,
so good at puns.
our guest is George Frandsen. He runs a project on the interwebs called the Poozeum. He has the world's largest collection of fossilized poop.
Other known as Coprolite.
Coprolite.
Right?
Is that right?
Coprolite? Yeah.
All right.
So very sciencey, very educational, even though we're talking about poop, which is also quite funny.
Yes. Quite funny, but George is very serious about his poop. He really knows his poop.
He does know his poop. He has a collection of between 8,000 to 10,000 pieces, which is insane.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of poop.
And which is really funny, his Guinness Book of World Record is only for 1,277 pieces because you have to have them, authenticated by an expert.
Yeah, they got to verify that the poop is actually poop and not just a box of rocks.
True.
Yes.
But yes, his stuff is legit, y'all, and he's very interesting. So check out him on Poozeum.com. And here's George talking about some poop.
George Frandsen, thank you so much for joining us on Completely Booked today. We're happy to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. This is a real pleasure.
Yeah. So first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your educational background like?
Okay, it's probably not what you would think. I was raised in Utah. Mm-hmm. I spent most of my life there and spent a lot of my childhood hiking and camping and looking for fossils. Getting dirty was a big part of my life growing up. Then went to school at a place called College of Eastern Utah, which was more of a trade school. It was a 2-year college, and they had a great mining program. And part of that mining program was geology. So I got into some geology classes. I got into some paleontology classes, and I loved it. And so after I finished there, I went to the University of Utah and kind of shifted gears and got a bachelor's in anthropology, archaeology, with a focus on Southwest cultures.
Wow.
And then from there, worked all kinds of different things. And then I came out to Florida.
Very nice. And what brought you to the area originally?
A job. I got a job as the a security manager for a large company out here. It was totally different. I actually have a master's degree in security management too.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that was something you could get a degree in.
You can. It's crazy. So it kind of went away from some of my passions to make sure to another passion, which is totally different. And I love this field too. And this is kind of what I ended up career-wise. So I came out here for that.
Very interesting. So this is something we never thought we'd be able to say on our show, but you have a very interesting interest, if I may say so myself, in prehistoric poop. How did this interest come about?
Well, prehistoric poop is fascinating. Coprolite, or what you call it, is probably the neatest fossil out there in the world. It's a totally underserved fossil by the paleontological community, which is too bad. Everybody likes to go to the museum and see the big skeletons, the T-Rex and Allosaurus and those kind of things. I go looking for the poo, which I think is pretty exciting. So when I was younger in college, I was telling you, I went to College of Eastern Utah and took some classes. Part of that was to put together collections. And when I was doing that, I found my first coprolite in a rock shop in a town called Moab. And before that time, I never knew there was such a thing. And I thought it was kind of a joke. I was like, what? This is crazy. But I loved it because I was 19. I was like, guys, just thought this is going to be on the shelf. We're going to talk about it. Everybody that comes in the dorm, best thing ever. It was $20, which back then was a lot. But I bought it because I thought it would every bit worth it. And since then, that led to the next one. Then when I learned more about the geology of the area, I'd go out and find them. And that added to the collection. And then it just grew and grew. And then I started branching out, I networked, and I was getting coprolites or fossilized poo from all over the world and buying it, collecting it, trading for it. And so now I'm 39 and collection's probably upwards 8,000 to 10,000 pieces.
Really?
Whoa.
Holy moly.
Where do you keep all that poo?
Oh, it's a lot of poo. A lot of it's very tiny. We have little tiny pieces, and some are large. In fact, I almost forgot. I'm sorry.
Did you bring some?
I did.
There is poo
We
in
love
the
show and tell.
building.
There is poo in the building.
Wow, that's a poo.
Because you really need to see it to appreciate it.
Now, listeners, we
Right.
are currently looking at something very long, very dark brown.
Yes.
Something that someone would probably be pretty proud to produce
Oh,
themselves.
absolutely.
This is
Whoa.
incredible. So what are we looking at here, George?
Okay, this is a fossilized poo or coprolite from South Carolina.
Oh.
It's reported to be 5 to 23 million years old, and most likely from prehistoric crocodilian of some kind.
Really fascinating.
You can see
Wow.
it's solid. It's rock hard. It doesn't smell. But it holds the features that it originally had.
It sure does. I mean, I don't know much about prehistoric crocodilian poop, but I would say it looked
Yeah.
a lot like this
looked just like
when it was
this.
fresh.
Wow, it's heavy
Wow.
too.
It is very heavy.
Is that because of like the fossilization, or is that like just what it would weigh?
Well, originally it would probably weigh close to this because most of it was water weight and organic matter. Through the fossilization process, you have minerals that exchange for organic matter and phosphates, and then it turns to stone. So it's probably a bit heavier. But yes, that's why it's heavy. Like
Now, did you find this one yourself?
I did not. The ones from South Carolina, they're actually very dangerous to go after. You have divers that dive the dark rivers, and they go to the bottom, and you can't see. They go down there with tools and dig up the bottom of the dirt under the river and feel for fossils, mainly big megalodon shark teeth, which that's why they're going there for. They're worth a mint. These are really secondary or way down the line. They will bring them up, and then they'll usually call me or send me an email, and we'll make a deal for it.
Well, so you
Wow.
really are the resident poo expert.
I am the poo guy. When someone finds a neat poo, they reach out to me, and I really appreciate that they do. It helps the collection tremendously, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. So you mentioned, though, that you have found a lot of these yourself, too. How do you go
Yes.
about finding a fossilized poo?
You have to know the geology of the area. You have to know that there are already fossils there, and there's prehistoric soil that has eroded or is showing somehow. Mainly out west is where I feel at home, and I know the area best. So I can drive down the road and say, hey, that hillside is full of fossils. And if it's either private property and I know the landowner, or it's legal to collect, I'll go take a look. And back home, the coprolites from there are a little different, but I'll look through the dirt, and if I find fossils, great. If I find poo, even better. Usually I take the fossils I find that are not poo related and trade them or sell them for the poo collection.
Very cool. Now, this collection of poo is called the Poozeum, right?
It is called the Poozeum.
Tell us about that. How did that come about?
So years ago, so I had this collection. It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I had a passion for prehistoric life. I had a passion for coprolites. I think they're awesome. And it almost seemed like I was this island. Nobody else was doing it. I'm lucky I get to travel a lot for my job, and I'd go to museums everywhere I could go. And hopefully they'd have coprolites. I'd go look at to see what they have. Nobody had any out. And so I'd do searches on the web if I was looking for something, and very rarely would there be anything of substance where I could go look for pictures or comparative analysis. for other specimens. There was one or two people that really were into it. So I thought, I'm going to fill this void with my collection. I love photography, so I'm going to take pictures of my specimens. I'm going to put out information I have. I keep very detailed records of all my fossils. And I'm going to put it out there for everybody. I want to pull every resource I can find on the subject matter, combine it together so when other people are out looking for information on fossilized poo, Poozeum will be their first stop. And that's what it's become. It's become the number one resource for coprolites and fossilized poo.
So you have a monopoly on the poo game.
I have a monopoly on the poo game.
Wow.
It's a very intense website.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I
Very
loved
vast.
looking through it before you got here today. It is a vast resource. And I would love to know, though,
Thank you.
what can fossilized poop teach us about our planet's history, about histories of different species, about geology?
Sure. Fossilized poop, people, like I said, it's the joke fossil. Everybody likes to make fun of it, and you don't see it around too often. But which is sad because fossilized poop is fascinating. It's like if you were to have a time capsule from prehistoric days. Prehistoric poo can tell you about animal physiology, behaviors, diet. I say diet, you find a coprolite, you find a fossilized piece of poo, and if you were to slice it open, sometimes they're on the surface, you can tell what that animal ate. You'll see bones that go to a certain type of shark, or you'll find teeth in it, or fins, bones, and you also find bite marks in fossilized poo. So we know that there were other animals in the area that dined on fossilized poo. Very distinct bite marks. It's incredible to think of what would have happened for that process to happen. So that would mean animal created this item. Another predator of some kind came and took a bite out of it, decided they didn't like it, and swam away, leaving the bite mark. Then that poo falls in the sediment, and it gets quickly covered in this very oxygen-deprived environment, becomes fossilized and retains those bite marks. It's fascinating.
Now, a lot of those poos with bite marks on them are included in part of the Poozeum called Very Important Poos, or VIPs.
Yes.
So what else is contained in the Very Important Poo section? And what makes a poo very important?
Well, it's very subjective. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are my favorite. Very important poos are rare. Have something about them that are so rare, so fascinating and neat that I want everybody to take a look. That if you go to this part of the page, if you don't look at anything else, please go to this part, the Very Important Poo page, and you will see some fascinating stuff. There's a piece from South Carolina that has a shark tooth in it with the bite mark where the tooth entered on the other side of it. Extremely rare. There's three from South Carolina. I love South Carolina poos. Shout out to South Carolina and their fossil record.
Great poo producers in
yes.
South Carolina.
Yes, thank you. And there's one, it's about the size of a Hostess pie. And it's like if you were to take that pie and take a bite out of it, leaving your top and bottom bite marks, and that were to fossilize, perfect fossilization. You can see each tooth mark. It's there perfect. That's one of my favorite. But the all-time favorite is this big, beautiful specimen. Weighs over 4 pounds. I name it Precious. It's fairly big. I'm making hand motions like you can see me, and you can't. I don't even know what that would be about the size of.
Because
A Chipotle burrito.
Thank you.
Yes.
A very large Chipotle burrito
Yes.
is
That
what it
you'll
would look like.
definitely be taking home for seconds.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Well,
Depends.
I
Depends
don't
on-
know.
yeah.
Depends on who you are and who you ask.
I think I'd take care of it. So imagine this big burrito, and it has a crunch on the side. So you see all the ripples and invertebrate burrows through it, because when it fell to the ground, probably in a water environment, little other critters, invertebrates, came to dine on it or live in it. But it retains the exact form that it used to. And it's just perfect. It's beautiful. It's shiny, naturally shiny. And a lot of times I get a lot of skeptics. I know it's hard to believe that people don't want to believe it, or they think I'm full of crap. Or they have just a lot of things to say that are negative. But when you can show them a specimen like Precious, you turn a lot of those naysayers into curious people who want to know more about prehistoric life and fossilized poo.
Well, in addition to collecting fossilized poos for the Poozeum and providing education on fossilized poo, what other types of work do you do as a scientist?
Okay, I should probably be clear. I am mainly a collector.
Okay.
I love science, and I love the science of it, and I'm well read, and I love to read research papers. But I'd do a great disservice to the real scientists out there if I were to claim anything different. I'm a collector, and I'm a researcher, and I'm a bit of an entertainer when it comes to putting that information out. I want people to be engaged. I want them to be happy and excited when they see information on poo.
Sure.
A lot of scientists, maybe they're just mainly concerned about the information, not so concerned about how that information is displayed. But that's my passion, and I don't really go outside. I don't do a lot of other scientific studies. It really is in the realm of paleontology and prehistoric life.
Well, you did mention your work as an entertainer as well, and you recently were featured on the A&E show Ozzie and Jack's World Detour. What was that like?
That was a super experience. They reached out many months ago to see if they could come and visit the Poo collection. And the Poo collection is actually a traveling exhibit. It's not at one place at any one time. It started out at the Bradenton, South Florida Museum in Bradenton. Then it was at the University of Florida at their Natural History Museum until earlier this year. They had a big display. So it was working with Ozzie and Jack's World Detour to try to get a good time where they could come out and kind of organize a perfect place where they could come see it. It was between shows, and my house isn't really set up to have that kind of production. So Ripley's Believe It or Not down in St. Augustine stepped up and said, look, we will empty your room. We're going to take care of you. Come and do it down here. We think this is really neat. So I want to thank them, because they got nothing out of it really other than being on the show. Mm-hmm. And we went and set up the Poozeum in Ripley's, and they came and filmed. I got to say, everybody on that show, just extremely professional, very funny, neat people, and it was a great experience. I think it was the first time where that much TV time has been given to fossilized poo.
Wow!
So it was neat, and what was neat about it is that they painted it in an interesting light. It was not like, gross, this is stupid, what are we doing? Because sometimes they go to places and it's like, ooh, this is, come away with kind of a negative outlook. But they didn't. They really did a good job putting it in a great light.
So Ozzie and Jack enjoyed it. They thought it was a cool display.
See, that's the problem. Ozzie was doing this concert here in Jacksonville, mm-hmm. So he wasn't able to come. But Jack and his sister Kelly were the ones that did all the shows in St. Augustine. They went to the different places in St. Augustine, and both of them were great. So I never got to meet Ozzie. But he did take this great selfie of, we have a replica Tyrannosaurus Rex turd. It's, 24 inches long and about 8 inches wide. So they took it to Ozzie, and he did a bunch of poses with this giant turd, these funny pictures. And we sent a fossilized turd to Ozzie, and he took pictures with that, and he posted it, which really helped the Poozeum gained some momentum and some followers on social media, which was neat, that maybe we wouldn't have reached before. And so even though we didn't get to see him, he really participated in the process, which was great.
That's great, yeah. Yeah. So I want to know, is there like a dream poo that you have your sights set on? Like, is there a one poo to rule them all?
To beat Precious.
Beat Precious.
Beat Precious.
Now, Precious sounds pretty great.
I know. It's hard to top.
Precious would be extremely hard to beat. It's beautiful. Well, up in Canada, they have found a couple. They attribute them to Tyrannosaurus rex poos, and they're fairly large. They're about 20 inches, and one is about 20. The other one's about 24 inches, and that's considered the largest fossilized poo in the world. Which really irks me because I feel like I should have it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Or a different one, maybe not that one, but a different one. So my goal is to find and acquire the world's largest poo.
Wow.
That's
I just got goosebumps.
I know
incredible.
It's going to be quite the treasure hunt. I've been looking for years, and I would probably pay a pretty sum for the world's largest poo, or trade, or do whatever I had to get this large poo. And I don't know where it is. I'm hoping someone finds it and reaches out, or I don't know how it's going to come about, but I'm wishful.
You would
hopeful.
never trade Precious for the largest poo in
Ooh,
the world.
see, that's-
Do you want it that
Ooh.
bad?
That's
I don't know.
that if that was part of the deal, and
Ooh.
I got the world's largest poo. So I have the world's largest poo collection,
Right.
Right.
but I don't have the world's largest poo.
If you put all your poos together, it would probably become the world's largest
It
poo.
would definitely be the world's largest poo. Maybe they could take like a conglomerate of poos. I could just like glue them together.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Is that in the Guinness Book of World Records? Would you make a new section?
There is the world's largest fossilized poo in Guinness World Records. In the 2017 book, we had to kind of share space. They were in there too, the world's largest fossilized poo. It's up in a museum and up in Canada. So they got their picture, and the collection, my collection was also in there. So
Wow.
they gave a lot of page space to fossilized poo. Got to hand it to them.
That's
Nice.
great.
How generous of
Times
them.
are changing.
I know.
They sure are. So we want to know about your own research. Do you use the library at all for your research?
I do. You guys have a book here. It's called Dino Dung, The Scoop on Fossilized Feces. In fact, it looks like you have 6 or 7 copies around Jacksonville.
Terrific.
This is one of my favorite books. I'd say it's intended for a young, maybe 8 to 14 age, but I love it. It is full of great information. It's written by a woman named Karen Chin, who is considered the top coprolite scientist. She's spent her whole professional career studying poo. A fascinating woman at University of Boulder. And she wrote this book, and so when I want to see it, it's at a Jacksonville library.
Wonderful. Have you ever considered writing a book?
Ooh, put your collection in a book. That would be
Ooh.
awesome.
That'd be terrific.
I've thought about that. I'm more interested in maybe doing a coffee table book, like a very ornate picture book. So people flip the page, and there's this beautiful new poo. They flip the page, another beautiful poo. I get distracted very easily. You can probably tell just in this conversation. So books with lots of text, I'm off. But picture books, I love them. So that's probably what I'd focus on, is a beautiful coffee table book full of poo.
Well, I hope we can have that in our library collection someday. That would be
Yes.
extraordinary.
Ye-
Now, we ask this at the end of all of our interviews. We want to know, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Ooh, well, I want it to be a lot of different things growing up. I think a lot of people do, but it's more of not what I wanted to be, but who I wanted to be. I spent my young years in the 80s. And there was a time when there was these great movies out, like Romancing the Stone, where you had the main character as Michael Douglas, Jack Colton, and he's this kind of very independent adventurer, thrill seeker that's out looking for treasure, which were birds at that time. And then he goes on this treasure hunt. I thought that was a very neat character, and thought, man, that's the kind of person I want to be. And of course, there was Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark and the other Indiana Jones movies. Those were incredible. Here's this other guy who's out looking for wonderful treasures and going on adventures. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to grow up, go on adventures, travel, explore, and look for treasures. And to me, that's what I've done. I'm fortunate to travel the world. I look for these wonderful paleontological treasures, fossilized poo, and I love it. So that's, I think my 6-year-old self would be very happy with what I've become.
That's such a good feeling. I bet it is. Yeah.
Treasure hunt of a lifetime.
Indeed.
Yes.
Get the world's largest poo. Be the ultimate.
That's it. Well, I'll call you back. I'll call you when I find that poo.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We'll have to bring it down.
Not if, but when.
When you find
When.
it.
So that's very optimistic.
You are
will.
going to
Thank you.
find it.
Thank you.
And I
Even
want
if you have to sell precious.
And if anybody's out there that has the largest poo,
Yes.
out
you
there.
reach
Give
out
us
to
a
the
call.
Poozeum or
Yes.
reach out to the library. Yeah.
Oh, I have a. So the Etsy shop that you have as well, this is something you run, right?
Yes.
Because I almost bought a shirt before the end of this interview. I found it and I was like, oh, I got to have this shirt. That is insane. I love it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we have Poozeum-themed merchandise up on our shop because we get people who are really excited about fossilized poo and the Poozeum, and they want something from it. We don't have a physical store, so we just have the Etsy shop with that type of stuff. And ever occasionally we'll put some fossils up or some other, some neat dinosaur-themed stuff.
Awesome. And where can our listeners find you on social media and online?
Social media, Poozeum, Facebook, we're it. And then Instagram, we have this great Instagram site. We're also just the Poozeum, Poozeum. And then, of course, the Poozeum's main page, www.poozeum.com.
Very cool. Well,
I
George,
want to get it in the library. Your traveling collection. Do you think it could ever come to the library?
Absolutely. I would love to partner and make an exhibit here. I do all the exhibits for free. And that's really important to me that, I feel I have these resources, these wonderful resources that have come from all over the world. And as their caretaker, it's my responsibility to let the public see them. I don't make a dime, so I'll donate it to the different museums. If they're willing to house it and show it and take the time to display it, I'm more than willing to hand it over and let them do that. I think that's a great partnership.
awesome. We need to get you in touch with our programming librarians.
Yeah,
I think.
Special collections.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We
This
got
is
to
happening,
get the Poozeum
guys.
up in here.
Stay tuned.
Happening. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more poop. Well, George, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today.
Early.
It has been a blast talking to you about your love for these beautiful treasures.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I get to come back and talk about poo again.
Yes, we would love that.
Until then, George, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Woo, we really held it together through that interview, Jenna. I
think we did a
so
great job.
Proud of us. We were not immature at all.
No, we were so professional, you guys. Talking about poop is really hard because I was like ready to just make all kinds of jokes, but it was no joking matter.
It really wasn't, but right now,
It
since
is.
George isn't
It's a
here,
joking
I mean, it was really funny talking about poop for 25 minutes.
It was, and we kept calling it poo, which I was surprised. I was like, ooh, I wonder what we're going to call it.
Yeah, what's sillier to you, poop or poo?
I don't know. I think poo is like you're trying to be like kind of, trying to be a little fancy.
Yeah, it's kind of elitist.
I think so. So poop, I think, is funnier.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah, for sure. Poop. I mean, I'm gonna keep calling it poop.
Yeah, I'm team poop.
For sure.
Yes.
But I mean, who wants to see this poop in the library, you guys? Seriously?
Me. I do.
Oh man, we're gonna work on that seriously because that would be an amazing exhibit to have in special collections or even in one of the branches. Who wants poop in their neighborhood, y'all?
I sure do.
Mm-hmm.
I sure as heck do. And I really, really hope that George finds the world's largest poop. I am telling you, we need to have him on the podcast again.
Yes.
When he finds it, so he can tell us about his journey toward the world's largest poop.
Yes. If anyone knows anyone that does any sort of archaeological excavation stuff.
Yeah, if anybody's got a poop guy who's not George, basically call George.
Even though George is basically the only poop guy.
He's a poop guy.
The poop guy around the nation, I guess, right?
The world.
The world?
I think he's the international poop man.
And he lives here in Jacksonville, you guys.
Yeah,
It's hilarious.
crazy. No one can ever say that Jacksonville is a boring place because we have the world's largest collection of poop right here in the city.
Yep. He keeps some of them in a safe, he said. He has a
Yeah.
giant safe that he keeps them in. If
Yes,
they're
in
not
an undisclosed location.
so secretive.
Spooky.
Poop is precious.
Yes, poop is Make sure you visit the Poozeum online at Poozeum.com and follow George on Instagram at Poozeum and give him a like on Facebook too.
Yes, some great content, you guys. Also, his Etsy shop is amazing. If you want a shirt that says Poozeum with a little dinosaur on it, go get it. It's so cute.
Yeah, Jenna, I think you need to get that Poozeum tank top to do CrossFit in.
Oh, it's done.
100%.
I'm ordering it right now.
Yes, good.
Oh,
Done.
so funny.
Done and done. While you're on the interwebs, make sure you check out our website, jackspubliclibrary.org/podcast.
It'll be full of poop this week.
Full of poop. You can see a picture of the poop we were talking about during our show, the poop that is very, very large.
Quite dense.
Yes.
It's a dense poop.
Dense.
Crocodilians. I don't know what they're eating.
I don't either.
Stands the test of time.
But I bet if we cracked open that poop, we would get to find out.
We would know.
And that's the amazing thing about poop.
Mm-hmm.
But shoot us a like on Facebook or follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Jack's Library.
Yes, if you're listening on iTunes, make sure you give us a 5-star review.
5 stars. Count them. 5.
5 poop stars. Ooh. And you could even say we were poopy because it's true.
It is true.
We're poopy today.
This Poocast was produced by Brian Thomas, a.k.a. BT, a.k.a. Producer Brian.
It's
Goodbye!